here and have talks and have such sessions. Uh, this time we had couple of sessions earlier on, and due to the unfortunate circumstances which took place, we had to cancel them. And then few days back when colleagues in Kalon had called Karteshim Group that sir would like to have a session here, then I jumped up and said yes, we'll have a session and start this year with some fruitful one. So we are very come in, read from his excerpts. We have LAMO here who will be moderating the session.
Julie, salam, yang, good evening. It's a great pleasure to have Sir Pramod Jain here to recite his collection from his poems from his own collection, Lockdown and Other Poems. And I welcome you all to LAMO for this wonderful evening, because Sir is a poet whose verses echo with clarity, compassion, and quiet resilience. And his work speaks of stillness and movement, of confinement and discovery, of solitude in society, of apathy, empathy, and as well as some geopolitics. So, without much ado, I would like to, yes, a lot more than that. But without much ado, I would like to introduce him as a person. So, Mr. Pramod Jain ji is an alumnus of the University of Jammu, University of Bath, England, and Maxwell School, Syracuse University, USA. A recipient of 6 gold medals, he joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1985 and was trained at Lavasna, Missouri. He did in-service courses at IAS, ASCI, TIS, et al. He also attended executive programs at Harvard, Cambridge, The Hague, and AIT Bangkok, and spoke in international conferences at Oxford, Stockholm, Yogyakarta, Santiago, Bali, Kandy, and New Delhi. As a career in civil service, he worked with distinction in J&K as well as in the union government, and held important assignments both in the field and at the highest policy-making levels. He also represented Government of India on the board of several national and international cultural bodies, led museum reforms, organized several festivals of India abroad, and promoted international cultural relations. As the Union Joint Secretary for Culture, surrounded as he was by the poets, writers, and prima donnas of fine arts and art nouveau, he owned his poetic sensibilities and creative instincts. He has recited poems at various forums, especially the Sark Library Festival at Bengaluru, where he was the chief guest, and in Imphal under the aegis of the Sahitya Academy. His earlier poems were published in local papers and youth magazines. Pramod Jain ji has written 2 books, and post-retirement he spends most of his time immersed in the world of letters. He has a good footprint of foreign travel and currently resides with his family in Jammu. He has recently been also part of the new district committee formation, and that's why you must have seen him across in various social media platforms, traveling across Ladakh. So as he was saying, he has traveled almost 2,800 kilometers across Ladakh, covering various perspectives from the Ladakhi people regarding the new districts. And this anthology, Lockdown and Other Poems, is his first collection of poems, and more, as he says, are on the way, including one complete book of poetry on Ladakh. So I think that's pretty much of an introduction, and I would like to now move towards a bit of his poetic, let's say the poetic grace cells has to be nudged. So in that way, Mr. Pramod Jain ji is a respected civil servant and a deeply thoughtful poet. And let's explore poetry through his own words and through his own voice. So I would request sir to please start with one of your first recitations.
It's wonderful to be here and meet people, especially when I know that Leh is a town where, despite being quite small and compact, there is a lot of inner yearning for art, culture, and heritage. And one feels very comfortable talking to people, interacting with them, and relating in the artistic, literary, and cultural sense. I'm not an established poet, to be honest. I'm a struggler. I started late, actually, in the real sense. Though initially, I had been writing at college. But then, that was for small local newspapers and youth magazines. When I got the opportunity to work in the Government of India, Ministry of Culture, almost everybody who would come to meet me was a Padmashri. And I used to wonder, you see, they are all much taller than me. And can I also explore what I started initially at college? Why not? So there was a lot of encouragement from many people, and I started dabbling more frequently in this thing. A book was about to be published and launched, but then there was a last minute hiccup with one of the celebrated publishers. He thought there is no money in poetry and let's forget it for the time being. But I continued. The opportunity came again during the COVID-19 period. There was nothing to do, so I thought, why not start writing my experiences, and one day maybe that would be. This book comprises primarily poems written around that ecosystem of pain and hurt and anxiety and depression and despair. And that was when people were getting sick and dying, and the numbers were huge, talked about all over. There were deaths in family and nearby, and friends and neighbors, and all types of tragedies happening. Humanity was grappling with something which came probably after 100 years in a different form. But then, as it happens in all human tragedies, the hope starts. Somewhere it kindles, and people start feeling, no, we must get up, get remedies, work hard collectively, and get over this. And that is the ultimate. The hope survives, the hope triumphs and wins. And that triumphalism has ultimately found a remarkable place in this book, saying that ultimately is mankind hoping and winning.
May I add, that was powerful
please.
rendering, and let us say how you have encapsulated the ache of suspended time of COVID-19. And I still look back through your poems. I traveled back to 2020 and 2021 when Ladakh was under the, we were all in the cages in our own homes, but the birds were flying happily and animals were roaming freely. So yes, thank you for the powerful rendering, sir.
All mornings, slow and unending, I spent breathing the air's freshness, feeling the roses' aroma, talking to grass green, and listening to fruit trees, thanks to the lockdown. And it has actually happened. There's a locust tree in my house and a mango tree in the backyard. So I would take inspiration from these trees. All mornings, slow and unending, I spent breathing the air's freshness, feeling the roses' aroma, talking to grass green, and listening to fruit trees, thanks to the lockdown. Lazy afternoons I spent under a locust tree, eyeing my fruit's youthfulness, wondering when they ripen and fall into my lap, thanks to the lockdown. There is now a quail in my neighborhood, a squirrel in my lawn, and a lizard in my kitchen garden. Shrikes and pigeons fly through the day. I now wait for a peacock in my backyard, thanks to the lockdown. So every bad thing also probably has some light in the far horizon, and you can start searching for that light now or later. So that's how it all started.
Then I realized how Ladakh can be a wonderful place for cloud watching. So indeed, your keen eye for the nature has actually given rise to thanks to lockdown. Yeah. And Ladakh apricot, no doubt, small but sweet. Choto packet bada dhamaka type of proverb you can use here. Yeah.
The Ladakh review. Mr. Shakespeare. Tales to tell. This is during one of my travels within Ladakh. I captured the ideas, and as is my habit, I would immediately write down, even when I am traveling in a jeep. Tales to tell. Dark brown, wrinkled faces with tall fur caps, neither caps nor hats actually, above well-tied, battered gonchas have tales to tell of survival, endurance and grit, of ideas held in place by high cheekbones. No offense. of survival, endurance and grit, of ideas held in place by high cheekbones, of dreams so well woven under scorching blue skies and in remote, windy, freezing highlands, of flying dragons, edible rocks and butter lamps, of rock-cut Maitreya Buddhas, of springs now dead and species silently dying, of umchis possessed and mantras that healed, the lamas who saw future. Lamaji, of umchis possessed and mantras that healed, the lamas who saw future, and a Rinpoche who travelled bodiless. So I think that's about.
Very short. I mean, such a big tragedy was fallen on entire humanity, and Ladakh was not an exception. And my view is that it was a reset for humanity, and more so for Ladakh, because there's been a lot of. I always say that in our society there's been transition, and every society goes through a transition. But for us, there's also a transformation. I mean, these are two different terms, and not many societies goes through a transformation. So this was a reset within the transition and transformation. And fortunately, I got to serve my people here. I was here in some position then. And there are a lot of insights you get when you sit in a chair, which you don't get if you're not there. You get the macro picture.
Very much keen to have a both version. That makes me more fascinating. Ladakhi as well as English.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you think? What kind of development that is taking place in Ladakh? According to you, as you have been traveled all through Ladakh during your chairmanship in the UGST committee.
Believe me.
Sir, I have a lot of things to ask. I have a lot of things to ask. I'll do this after session.
Yes.
I'll do this like
One-on-one, sir.
yeah, one-on-one.
And coming in.
Thank you.
So we'll all gather around for a group photograph.